Hey everyone, Michael Tressler here. I am with Traci Herr from Microsoft, and she is going to show me how to set up my domain so I can get my team's devices working with conditional access in Intune. Hi, Traci.
Hi, everybody.
And what is it that you do at Microsoft, Traci?
I work on one of our devices teams here in Microsoft where we specialize in all of the things having to do with Teams Android devices, phones, panels, MTRs, meeting room devices, and displays. And so the specialty here is that you have to stretch your knowledge across multiple platforms. So it's not just being an expert in Teams, you have to be an expert in Teams and conditional access and Intune. So that's what we will be working on today.
Traci, the deal is I just bought some Android phones, Teams devices, and I plugged them in and signed them in, and it did or didn't work, which is irrelevant. I now want to secure these using conditional access and Intune. We already have some Android mobile phones, so our Android mobile phones are locked down and secure. But how do I make these Android devices work? Because I think things get squirrely if we don't do it right. Correct?
That's right. There will be things that will not let you sign a device in at all. There will be other settings that make your phones or meeting room devices sign in, stay signed in for a few minutes, and then sign out. There's other settings that cause the sign in loop, where it looks like it's signing in and then signs out immediately. All kinds of things that can happen.
Let's go
So
ahead and say I saw. Well, I want to get this set up in the first place, right? So, what do I do? Where do I go? How do
let's
I
go
how do I get
to
conditional access going?
let's go to Endpoint Manager, the Endpoint
Uh,
Management portal.
and somebody told me once it's endpoint.microsoft.com.
Yes. So let's go to the devices area on the left.
That makes sense.
And let's first check your enrollment policies because the devices first have to go through enrollment. And that'll be the first place where it'll stop you. So click on Enroll Devices.
And what's enrollment? What does that mean?
Enrollment is Intune is going to manage the device. So when it enrolls with Intune, it takes a couple of attributes from the device and stores it into Intune so you can set compliance policies, possibly push things down to the device. It shares the manufacturer and model number of the device with Azure AD so you can create filters and lots of other things, but we
So
won't
we're
go
in
into.
Intune land right now. Is that
We
right?
are we are in Intune land right now. This is
Intune
all.
land. All right.
Yeah.
Like it's Android enrollment.
Yeah. First, we want to check your Android enrollment and scroll all the way to the bottom and click on the Android Device Administrator Personal and Corporate Owned. So this checkbox is checked. Great. That's what we need. Because it's checked, you have no way to disable this, which means if you have a device that's using an account that has an Intune license, it's going to be forced to enroll because you can't disable this, which means now we have to configure all of your policies correctly to allow enrollment to happen for these devices.
And I have to use this device administrator. I can't use the new cool that I use on my other Android phones, Android mobile
No,
devices.
no. Right now, we are still using Android Device Administrator platform for all of the team's Android devices. So
Okay.
go back up one level and go to enrollment device platform restriction. All right,
Okay.
so here's your Android restriction policy. Let's check your default policy there for all users and see what's in there. Click on all users
Click on all users. All right. I was trying to double click on stuff.
and then go to properties. All right, so your default enrollment policy is allowing Android Enterprise for Work, which is for mobile devices. But it's
Yes.
not allowing the Android Device Administrator. You have two options here. You could add the Android Device Administrator platform and allow it in the all user policy, or you could create a separate policy where you can just assign that policy to certain users.
Well, it
What would you?
seems easiest to just add it to all users. But is that the best idea? Is easiest the best?
Not always. If you were to create a separate policy, you could assign it to just a specific group. This is good for common area phones, especially if you only have common area phones and meeting room devices, but you don't use that for regular user telephones, then you would probably want to have its own separate enrollment restriction policy.
Well, which way do you recommend I go in this example? Do I
Let's
go
create a new one.
create a new one? That seems like more
Yeah,
fun anyway, right?
yeah, absolutely. So
So,
here, just create restriction and
and
call it Teams phones or something.
start stringing things together. There you go. All right.
Next. All right, so here we're given the option, and we wouldn't really want to use the same policy for our Teams devices that we would use for mobile Android devices. So we're going to want to block the Android Enterprise for Work profile. Yep, block the
Okay.
platform. That turns it off on both sides. And now we're allowing it for the device administrator, which is only for our Teams devices. The personally owned, you can block that if you want, but if you block the personally owned, then you have to do one extra step and add the serial number of all of your devices into the Intune portal.
And what advantage does it give me to manually add all the serial numbers into the Intune portal?
It's a little bit of extra security.
How does that secure it? Like,
You wouldn't be able to sign in with a device that you have not added the serial number into your portals. You, as the administrator, have full control. And if somebody has a phone at home, they just bought it, they want to sign in, well, you don't necessarily want them to be signing in. You only want the device you want to allow sign in. So
so this
that's the
helps.
control you have.
Yeah, so that would help prevent people buying some weirdo phone off eBay and start signing in. And next thing you know, we're using all vendor A, and then all these vendor B and C phones start showing up.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then they call us for support and saying, "Hey, I can't do that." And it's like, "Do this," and it's like, "That's not on my phone." It's like, "What phone do
Right.
you have?" I don't know. For now, let's go ahead and allow it or block it. Sorry, let's go ahead and force some serial numbers. Seems like
Okay.
more fun.
All right. Great.
All right, next.
You can just next to the assignment area. And for the add a group, I believe that you have already created a group for the phones called SG underscore team phones. Yeah, that one.
Teams IP phones. Yeah, yeah, I totally did this. And what's in here? Can we go look at it? Do you have? Where's?
Yeah,
We
if
can look
you
at this
go
in
to
Azure, right?
Azure portal and we can look at the group.
SG Teams IP phones
Members.
and members. Cap and Traci H, common area phone, and you.
Yeah,
Where's the? Is this a static? Is this a static group or?
it is. You can add yourself here.
All right. So now any member of this group will get this policy we're creating,
Yes.
or at least,
Sometimes that
yeah.
takes a minute to
All
populate.
right. Well,
Yep,
you know
there you
what?
go.
There you go. All right. So we got that group. That's the people who this will apply to.
Yep. And next and finish, create.
And this also gives the thought that if I had different policies for like HR and accounting than for sales, we can have multiple different policies based off job roles because some people may be more compliance than other people, compliance
Right.
restricted or whatever. So in one world, we could have like, yes, go ahead and buy an eBay phone. And on the other ones, it's like, no, it has to be these.
That's right.
Okay.
So since you blocked the personal devices, we're going to go to the next area right below that, corporate device identifiers. This is where we add the serial numbers so that when a device signs in, it gets marked as a corporate device instead of a personal device.
Let me see if I can find a serial number quickly. All right, so I grabbed the OEM serial number off. I put it under IMEI. I need to change this to serial number.
Right, the IMEI is only for mobile. So for our Teams devices, we can only use serial numbers.
So if I didn't make a typo, and we're going to call it the Link phone 1 just for now. So it seems like a good idea when I buy these, when I start buying my devices to get the serial numbers from my vendors into a spreadsheet, into a CSV format, so I can just upload this. And every time I buy phones, upload it. And that seems like it'd be a lot easier than typing these in manually.
Absolutely, you are correct on that one.
All right.
And if you drop down the little arrow next to the add button, it gives you the upload CSV. So that's how you would do that. Okay, so we're pretty much through enrollment here. We've done everything we need to do to get your device past enrollment. The next thing we need to look at is your compliance policies and your conditional access policies to make sure that both of them are going to allow your devices to sign in. So
All
let's
right.
go to compliance first because that's all Intune. So we're going to stay in Intune land. So
Yeah.
go back to devices up one level and
All
down
right.
to compliance policies.
Okay.
So you have two already, one for your iOS mobile phones and one for Android mobile phones.
Yep.
Neither of these are going to affect your team's devices. However, let's go to compliance policy settings.
All right.
So this setting right here, mark devices with no compliance policy as not compliant. That means since you don't have a policy created for the Android device administrator platform, it's going to mark the device as non-compliant. That's not good because that means that we won't have tokens issued properly and things will sign themselves out when you want them to stay signed in. So you can turn this on, or if it's a global policy and dictated by the organization, leave it turned off and we can create a policy to fix it.
So so if there's no compliance, so if we screw up and remove the compliance policies, we don't want the phones to be able to sign in. That's what this says?
Right now you don't have a compliance policy for
Correct.
Android device administrator. So because no policy exists, you will not be compliant.
Sounds good to me for right now. I may change my mind, but okay.
But if you're not compliant, that's going to stop you from being able to stay signed in after you get signed in the first time. So after the device signs in and it gets through enrollment, it checks this policy. And if it sees that you're not compliant, it makes the phone or device sign out.
Which is what we want, right? Because we don't have a policy and we want to secure these things.
Don't you want to be able to use them to make phone calls?
Yeah, but at that point, we'll have a policy, won't we? We'll have a compliance policy that will apply to them.
Yeah, but we're setting it up now so it will work, right? Or do you want to see it broken first?
Okay, so we basically just turn this on.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So that means we don't need to create a compliance policy, but we can still do it and we can set some settings in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is I right now, this second, I don't want anyone signing in with the Teams device.
Okay.
But in like 10 minutes, I do want someone because we'll have a policy.
Okay.
So
All right,
leave
so
it as.
let's go create a policy then.
Let's do that. So create a policy.
Yeah. And we're going to select Android device administrator.
Okay, looks like that's my only choice.
Yes.
All right, give it a name. So we'll call it Teams Android devices. And that will be Teams phones and stuff. All right, because I'm a professional and I use words like and stuff. All right, here's a bunch of stuff I'm going to start clicking.
Yeah.
I want endpoint. I want high endpoint. And then I want device health to be like block rooted devices. And I want to update security provider. That looks good to me. And then device properties. Oh, minimum OS version. They just released 13, so it better be 13. And maximum better not be higher than 13. Oh, it's got to be a different version, so I'll leave that blank. All right, I'm doing this great job. All right, next. Now what do we do?
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I need to advise you of a few things. Let's go.
I mean, just security. This is obvious stuff. Like, I don't want to root a device. It's obvious. I'm good.
Okay, well, there's only a few of these settings that are actually supported with our Teams devices. And a lot of these settings will break our Teams devices. So let me just go through the ones that are supported. And the other ones that you set in here, I can explain why they're not supported.
Is there somewhere I can go to see this? Is there like a list somewhere?
There is. Here, let me show you that list.
Or you can go to aka.ms/intunemtr.
You are right about that. This is our lovely table that's going to tell you all the supported settings. So when you look back at the policy you're creating, just keep scrolling down to the bottom. That first part is conditional access. But since we're talking about compliance policies, it's the bottom area right here. And you click on the Teams phones and displays, or Teams rooms on Android, or Teams panels, because each one of the tabs have a little bit different settings.
So it's saying these things aren't supported. So I think I'm pretty much sure I wanted Defender. I think I need to uncheck that now, don't I? Where's Defender for endpoint stuff? That seems unsupported. Yeah, that's probably because there's no Defender for endpoint on these devices.
That's right.
And I probably can't install it either because these are locked down. I can't just install things willy-nilly, right?
Right. You can't push applications down to the devices, and you can't have the devices checked for things that don't exist.
All right, rooted devices, so that's supported, and then not supported. Now, all this Google Play Protect things.
We don't have any Google Play that's installed on any of these devices. We are allowed to require encryption if you want that. However, not all phones have that flag to say, yes, I am encrypted, even though all storage is encrypted on all these devices. That's coming soon. But
all phones show up encrypted, but like Intune isn't up to speed yet to recognize that on every phone.
Right.
Okay. So I'll leave that blank. I'll turn that on later once I figure out if all my phones work appropriately with that flag for Intune.
Okay.
All
you
right.
can do the company portal runtime integrity and block USB debugging on devices. And that's about it. Those are our supported settings.
All right.
Depending on the environment, sometimes we change that immediately word to right above that on the mark device, non-compliant, go right next to it, and you can drop down the word immediate, and you can say 24 hours or 1 day. Give it a day to get registered in Intune, get registered in Teams Admin Center. Then you can push all of the latest firmware and Teams app down to the phone, which will help it comply with a lot of the things in Intune.
So when Audio Codes comes out with like Android 10, they're on 7 now. We got to make sure they're updated, and then they could be compliant because we set it to like be at least version 10 or something.
Right, but we're going to give it a day so that we don't mark it as non-compliant right away. That gives us time as administrators to patch it up and get it working.
Right. So if we're getting thousands of phones, we may set that to like 5 days or something, or a week.
Sure, if we're doing 5,000 phones in a 1 weekend, absolutely.
Right.
Or a week, yeah. And here we want to add the same group that we used for the other enrollment policy. That's it. Next and create.
Okay, so now this is making sure that when I sign in and enroll the device, that the device is not rooted, it doesn't have USB debugging, and a thing or two. So we're making sure the device is generally healthy and secure.
Right, that's right. Okay. So it's going to, after the device enrolls, it goes and checks the compliance policy and all the settings that you just set. It'll say, do I have these things that you want me to have? Am I at least version 7? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, then the Intune is now marking the device as a compliant device, which is what we want.
If the device is not compliant, I've got 1 day to fix it, like upgrade the firmware or whatever.
Yes. All right, great. So moving along, now that we know we have the compliance policy settings, we have all of the enrollment settings, the third step of this process is making sure the conditional access policies are in a supported configuration with the Teams devices.
So I'm confused here. What is conditional access? I thought like Intune does all the magic. What's conditional access do for me?
Conditional access is all about authentication. So getting signed into the device, you have to authenticate, put a password in, get some tokens issued to the device, get some tokens issued to the user. It's an entire process of authentication, back and forth handshaking, making sure that it's secure. So conditional access is part of Azure AD, not Intune. So we're going to switch over to Azure AD land and conditional access.
So conditional access is about making sure the user is who they say they are, and Intune is making sure the device is configured the way we want it to, or like it has, it's not rooted or something. So it's user versus device, kind of.
Kind of. Yes, you are correct. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's not exactly the way that it works, which is what we're going to talk about next.
All right.
So go up 1 level to the devices area, because we can access conditional access from here, from the Endpoint Management portal. And that's the recommended way, because if you access conditional access from the Azure AD portal, some things don't show up. But everything shows up when we look at it from here.
All right, so this is like a little aggregator of all the things.
Yeah, you have a lot of policies in here. Let's see, what are you doing in here?
I'm requiring multi-factor for my administrators.
Okay.
And I want to make sure my Exchange, all my devices are compliant, and multi-factor for risky sign-in. So if people are like signing in from 5 different places in 2 minutes, let's multi-factor that.
All right. So if you want to, before we dive into these policies, if you want to go back to that tab, the supported conditional access, and scroll to the top of that article, this is the table here where we can see what's supported for the phones and the panels and the room systems. There's a lot of things in here that are not supported. And so we're going to check your policies to see if there are unsupported settings. And if there are, we're going to correct these policies by adding a filter to protect our Teams devices.
What does that mean, protect our Teams devices?
So when you sign in to a Teams phone, it creates a device object in Azure AD. So you have the Azure AD device object, you have the Teams device object, which you see in the Teams Admin Center, but then also in Intune, because you've enrolled, you have an enrollment object. So 3 different objects for this device.
But they're all linked together, right?
They're linked together, sort of. But if you delete one, it doesn't delete all of them. You have to delete them individually. But for the conditional access specifically, we're only talking about the Azure AD device object. All right, so let's take a look at one of your policies, and we'll just go through and see if there are any unsupported settings.
All right, so I just randomly picked this guy.
Yep. Go. What do we have for cloud apps? Okay, that's
Exchange
fine.
and SharePoint.
Yep. So Exchange going to affect our devices a little bit because of calendaring, and SharePoint possibly, depending on the device. Go to conditions. That's not unsupported, but we're just taking a look to see what it's doing. All right, so client apps. Unfortunately, this is one of our unsupported settings because when conditional access goes to look for a browser or mobile apps and desktop clients, it can't find them. So then conditional access will tell Intune to mark the device object as non-compliant.
Because we're like other client or something?
Yeah, well, we don't have any of these things because it's the Android open source platform that is very slim down and doesn't have anything extra installed.
So this one could cause us trouble.
Yep. And then under the session area, you have something else there, conditional access app control. That's not supported either. That's going to cause the device object to get marked as non-compliant too. So this is one of those where we need to protect the device object, the Azure AD device object.
Like keep it from trying to use this policy.
So the way we do that is if you go under conditions and click on filter for devices. And here we're going to create an exclusion filter to exclude whatever Teams devices you have purchased. And we're going to use the manufacturer or the model number. Model number is more specific, but if you have all poly phones, you can just do manufacturer.
I got a link, so if I say manufacturer equals link, this will work, right?
The equals operator is a little bit intermittent, so I would go with contains or starts with. They work better. The in operator also works great if you're using it for model number. You can add a second one if you wanted to add specific model numbers. You can do an or to catch a model number.
Well, can I do if it's specifically just this one link device?
Yes.
So if I go with link T58A. And by the way, I'm getting these from Teams Admin Center because I already got one signed in before I set all this up. So I'm looking at the details of the phone in Teams Admin Center to get the manufacturer and model number. Yep. Is it case sensitive? Do we know? It says in Teams Admin Center lowercase, so I'm just going to do that.
It's not case sensitive. Teams Admin Center shows it as lowercase, but the Intune portal shows it as uppercase. It's fine both ways. All right. Change your your and or to or.
So, but that'll allow any link in instead of just the T58A, right?
That's true. Yeah, you want to only affect this phone or any T58A could get affected by this one. There's one more way to be a little bit more specific. You could add an expression for the device ID, and you could go get the device ID out of the Azure AD portal, but we'd have to have the device sign in for the first time before they created.
All right, so you know what? I think I'm just overthinking this. I'm just going to say a manufacturer contains audio codes, and then or manufacturer contains Crestron Let's allow anything in beyond just phones, right? So if now this could be Teams Rooms Android or something else, right?
Panels, displays, meeting room devices, and phones. Yep, all of them. Some
But
of the
not every manufacturer makes a phone, so these are the 4 phone manufacturers, so we'll just leave it there for now.
some of the older poly devices might be Polycom, but because you put contains, that should still be okay.
Ah, okay. Now, do I have to do this for every one of my policies?
You do, and the best way to do that is to copy the syntax. So if you go back into that same place you were, to conditions and exclude filtered devices and copy the rule syntax, then we can paste that into all of the other conditional access policies that might have unsupported settings.
This is a bit of work.
It is a little tedious, especially when you have tons of conditional access policies. So, yep, let's just go down the list and see what else we have that might be unsupported.
Well,
So
I guess I only have to do this for unsupported.
right, only any policy that has an unsupported setting for the Teams devices. What's the grant control say?
Require
Multi-factor.
multi-factor. We support
Okay.
multi-factor on our Android devices, and as long as they're not in shared mode, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this one should, to me, this one seems okay, but you're the pro. Does this one look okay to you?
What does the specific user identity say?
It says 14 selected.
So this one should be okay. Yep. We don't have
Right.
to put a policy on this one. Let's go to the next one.
I just go to I think the first one. I haven't looked at the first one yet.
For exchange. Yeah. Mark
Word
devices
was
compliant. That's okay. That is one of our supported.
for exchange.
But we have client app. This one gets us every time. So we're going to need the device filter on this one also.
Ooh. Where do I do that device filter?
Right underneath where it says client apps, filter for devices.
Oh, there it is. And then I can just edit and paste this thing in here.
Right. You have to turn it
Oops.
on first, yes. And don't forget to click the exclude radio button. Yep, there you go.
I
Great.
gotta think somehow there's like a way to PowerShell this and just throw it on all of our conditional access policies.
Somebody needs to come up with that. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna block access for
So what's the condition that we're blocking
no.
for? Client apps. So this one could get us also.
So let's not configured. Yes. Exclude. I think I found some work for an intern.
Yeah.
Go into these 48 policies that we have and just to do this. Risky sign-ins.
So this one's interesting. This is a good policy to explain some things. The sign-in risk level is totally supported with our Teams devices, but if it is a high-risk sign-in, it's going to only issue an authentication token once, and it will revoke it immediately after the device is signed out. So if the user takes the phone and puts it at a different desk or something like that, or maybe takes it home with them, this could make them sign in again, which will make a new device object get created under their account. So they would then end up with a stale object and a active object, device object. This only matters because if you have device limits set up, you could be bumping up against device limits if the user is having to re-sign in to their phone every day for 10 days or something. Now they have 10 device objects.
All right, I'm going to take a note, and I think we're going to talk about this here in a second. Let's take a note, and let's talk about this here in a minute. You said stale object and device limits. I'm not sure what those are, but I think we should make sure our policies are good first before we figure out what those things are.
Okay, great. Yep.
Is this something we should worry about or no? Because it'll sign in, it's supported, right?
It is supported. However, underneath at the bottom under sessions, you have sign-in frequency set to 2 days. So that is going to force periodic reauthentication, which also revokes the token and forces the device to sign out. So this is going to happen to everyone every 2 days. And if it's a common area phone, you don't want that to happen to common area phones because somebody's in the waiting room or in the kitchen and needs to dial 911 because they're choking. You need these devices to stay signed in, and conditional access cannot be the problem. So this is another one where we put the device filter on.
Now, don't devices re-authenticate anyway?
They do re-authenticate.
So what does this matter if we set it for 2 days or whatever the default is?
Well, normally they do a silent re-authentication. So they're getting silent tokens. They're handshaking back and forth with the Azure AD authentication service and token service, getting what it needs to stay signed in. When you set these specific settings, the device has no control, and it's working as designed. But from a telecom perspective, you don't want that. You want the phones to stay signed in so that you can use them in the emergency situations.
So signed in frequency is really saying how often do you manually need to resubmit your credentials?
Yes.
All right, so every 2 days, resubmit your credentials. In this case, if it's risky, fair enough. But most cases, if it's especially a common area phone, it shouldn't be risky. You sign in once and then you come back 3 years later and,
Right.
and upgrade the phone and sign it out one more time.
And this is a good example of a supported policy. So on our table of supported conditional access settings, they say supported. Sign in risk is supported. And we already know session controls is supported. I'm not sure if it's down below there. Maybe not. We have a note somewhere about it works as designed. It's doing what you want it to do when you set a sign in frequency. So it's just, we need to be concerned about it because of the emergency situations. So even though this is a supported policy, has all supported configurations, we still need to add the device filter so that the phones don't sign out. All right, 2 more to go. Oh, actually, this is a report only policy. We don't have to worry about anything that is set to report only. Or off. We're only concerned with policies that are turned on and enabled.
All right.
So
this
the
one's
last
in testing,
one,
so we just need to be sure if we flip it from report to on, we need to make sure it's not going to affect our devices.
right? Require re-authentication. This one has a sign-in frequency for every 8 hours. So this one, it's supported, but it's going to make the devices sign out. So we want to add that filter here too.
Again, it's supported for risky users, but not necessarily for the sign out part of risky users, right?
Well, and this one's not even talking about risky users. It's just saying
just
across the
require
board
it
for all apps. I want every human, every user to sign in every 8 hours.
Now, if it is like a high compliant user or something, I could do that, and they would never use their phone again. But they could every day when they come in, sign into their phone, sign into their laptop, and go. So theoretically, it would work. It just would be a miserable user experience.
Right. They will still have to sign in to their laptops and their mobile devices because we're not excluding those. We're only excluding the desk phones.
All right. I think we got them all.
I think we did. I think we're good. So you want to take a look at the device limits, and we can make sure.
Do we want to create our own policy here, or no?
You can create your own policy, but there aren't very many settings that are supported. So sure, let's do a policy just so that you have it there. And
I'm going to go with Teams Common Area Phones, which could also be Teams Panels. Let's do Teams Panels. Nobody ever talks about Teams Panels. Let's do Teams Panels, which should never move. They should be bolted to a wall. So one condition would be that location. They should never leave the corporate headquarters.
Right.
So they should be in a trusted location.
And for the cloud app, you're going to want to select something there.
Cloud app.
Cloud apps. Yep. Not to be confused with client app.
And let's see, we want Teams.
You can do that, or you can just do Office 365, and that covers all of them. But if you
but I'm that guy.
Okay, then you would need Teams, SharePoint, Exchange. I think that's it. You might need Intune also.
I think that's it based on a video I watched.
Okay.
All right, and I don't need to filter on devices, do I? Or do I only want to say include?
You can say include only these devices, yes.
So that way this doesn't apply to everyone, right?
Right.
So I want to keep that on include and do this. Now, if I really wanted to do panels, I would then have to put the model numbers of specific panels.
Right.
So
You
my
would have to
title isn't
change.
exactly the best, so I would have to like, I don't know, apply and then add expression or model contains. And I don't have a room panel in front of me, but let's get one quickly. Panels, restaurant dash touch panel dash 1070 dash T T T. There we go. So that'd be a way I'd lock it down, and then I could get rid of these, delete
Yeah,
those, and make sure it's only a Crestron touch panel 1070T.
absolutely.
All right. Anything
And
else we want to do?
for grant control, you could do mark devices compliant for a panel. And all these devices should be compliant because of our compliance policy. So that's
Yes,
good.
the one we created earlier.
You still need to add users because we need to add the users into the policy so that it affects somebody.
Let's go with all users for now. If you're
Okay,
signing into one of these devices, you get it. I don't like
excellent.
that name. I'm going to change it to Teams devices. Go Android devices. We do have some Windows ones. All right, now I'm happy.
All right, so you did specify that you wanted trusted locations, so we're going to have to put a trusted location into the named locations area.
Country's location. I'm just going to go IP ranges. Name this location. This is where I am. I'm going to mark it as a trusted location. Hit plus. Uh-oh, it's my IP range. IPchicken.com. So 75.115.121.155 slash 32. It's just one specific IP
Just
address.
one. Yep, that's right.
All right. Do you want to trust the location? What's your IP address? All right, there we have two. So those are the only two places on the planet you have to be at my house or your house to sign in.
Right. Let's talk about the device limits and what else did you have in your
Yeah,
list?
stale
Tell
objects. So what's
objects.
this? Or if you're from a certain friend of Teams MVP, Stale objects for Stale Hansen. Hi Stale, if you're watching. Stale object. What do we do with what's that?
So let's go to the devices area up one level. Go to Android and Android devices. So we're
All right.
right now we only have one object, and
Okay.
this is a stale object. This is the Intune enrollment object.
How do
Now
we
we're
know
gonna
it's
go.
stale? Because it's January 20th? Or how do we know it's stale?
That could be part of it. And also, the ownership is unknown. The primary user UPN is none. So no one
Oops.
has signed in to this phone. Otherwise, it would have a primary user UPN. There's one other place we go to check for that, and that's under the Azure AD portal. So switch tabs over to the Azure AD portal.
This
All
one
the way.
maybe?
Nope, to the
Nope.
left. Yeah, right here. So if you go to home and we'll just start fresh, view Azure Active Directory and go to devices. You can see all of your devices this way. Oh, looks like we have to re-sign in because one of our conditional access policies is forcing reauthentication.
There we go. Cached browser, I guess. All right. Oh, stale devices. Just tells me right there we have two stale
Yep.
devices.
We can see some stale devices there, all under all devices. Both of these objects are stale. Nobody's signed into them in a while. That's how we know we have some stale devices. And when we get the new phone signed in, you're going to see new device objects populate in there. So right now you have your maximum number of devices per user set to 5. That's pretty low because they might have a mobile phone, they might have a laptop, they might have a work desktop, they might have a
Teams
team
phone.
phone on their desk, and so that's 4. If they have any stale objects getting created because of token problems with conditional access, they're going to hit this limit. And when you hit this device limit, you can't sign in to your devices anymore. If the device gets signed out or if you sign it out, you won't be able to sign in again until you delete some of those stale objects.
So they automatically get deleted like every 30 days?
No, they do not. You would
They
have to configure. You would have to do some kind of configuration for that.
Is there a button I can push, or are we talking like a scheduled PowerShell script at this point?
Scheduled PowerShell script for the Azure AD device objects. Intune, though, has a nicer way of doing it. We go back to the Intune device limit area, click on devices.
I always want to go to endpoint security.
Yeah, we're
That
always
just
in
seems like
devices.
that just seems like the thing to click. Okay.
Yeah. So go to enroll devices, and we'll look at your limit here. This is a different limit. So enroll device limit restriction, enrollment device limit restriction, one above that. So here
15.
we have 15. So we're not quite matching. Azure AD is going to stop the device from signing in, even though we're allowing 15 devices in Intune. We really want them to match, or at least have Azure AD be higher than Intune.
We're just clicking around now at this point.
Yep, you can edit this, but in the portal here, the maximum is 15. So we can't go any higher than that.
All right. Well, let me set them both to 10, just because I don't like anything default, and I like to click on as many things as possible and break things.
All right.
So we can change this to 10. Now at least they'll match. Oh, 20 is recommended. Sure. Well, I'll set it to 10 because whatever. We're new to devices and we don't think everybody should have them. All right, save. And then later we'll upgrade it to 20 after we hit our first 11th device, and then open a support case.
Yeah. So since before we get off the stale object conversation, go back to the Intune portal and let me show you how to do that. Go to devices and then, you have to save that.
All right, devices.
And scroll to the bottom. You have device cleanup rules. So here you can set things to automatically get deleted based on a certain number of days.
It's been like 45 days or whatever it'll get. If a device hasn't been signed into in 45 days, punt it. And so once it gets punted, then it just comes back if I sign in again. Like if it is a legit device and I just like took a 6-month sabbatical and I come back, I just sign in again and no problems.
A new device. Well, if the stale object got deleted, a new object would get created. If the object has not been deleted yet and it's within that 45-day time frame, depending on the reason why it got signed out, it may create a new device object, or it may just use the one that's already there. There's some different scenarios there.
I'm not going to ask about those scenarios because we're just going to auto delete them and not worry about it.
Yeah. That's easier.
All right. That it on stale talk?
That is it.
All right. And then I think we talked about device limits at the same time. So yes. Anything else we need to add there, or is that on that?
Those are the only two topics. They tie together. So the one place in Intune, one place in Azure AD, device limits, stale objects, all the same conversation. But yeah, this is one of those tasks that needs to get done.
All right. Are we ready to sign in, or is there more we need to do?
We're ready to sign in.
Let me go grab the phone. And my code is A226 AMZDB. And here's me. There we go. Now the phone is doing spinny. So I can close this. Okay, Traci, it says on my phone, more information required. Your organization needs more information to keep your account secure. So I click next. And what does this mean?
You actually, because you haven't signed in to the browser with your account, you could be getting hit with forcing a password reset since you're new, or you could be getting hit with the self-service password reset, verify your information every 90 days.
I mean, didn't I do that? Didn't I just sign into this web page?
Yeah, that doesn't
sign into
count.
The phone? No cap. Since I haven't signed in really to like Office or anything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of MFA going on in the organization, so it's going to ask you to set up your second factors.
Okay, so after I did the multi-factor and by signing into Office, then I rebooted the phone, because it was in some weird state where it wanted to like install apps and stuff, which you can't do on these phones. It rebooted. It then did message my phone saying, approve the sign in request. And now I'm on a screen that says got it, make one-on-one group calls. And I just did that. And there you go. I've got calls, people, voicemail. I've got my phone signed in.
Excellent.
And
Yay.
so, like, that's to recap. It's like because it's in one of our known IP. So what can we see? Like, oh, there we go, Michael Tressler. What can we see now? Like, what are the things to look at to make sure it all looks good and that like I have all the devices in the right place and they look correct in the lists.
Good question. So let's find you in Azure AD. Let's take a look at your devices here. And your device object is good.
Isn't there something like if because I feel like the name is part of it, you got into Intune or something?
Your Yealink phone is running version 7. So it's good that we set our compliance policy down to 7 or minimum version. You're being marked as non-compliant somewhere, so we're going to go somewhere else to find out where that is and why that's happening. Over here in Intune, go under Android devices. And this is one of those areas that might take 10, 15 minutes to show up. But nope, there you are. You are being marked as a corporate device, which is good. That means you passed enrollment because you're corporate.
And it knows I'm corporate also because of the serial number we put in?
That's the way it knows, yes, the serial number. If the serial number wasn't there, you would be marked as a personal device here, and you wouldn't be allowed to sign in.
And I didn't typo the serial number.
Right? Apparently not.
Hey.
All right, so you have your 2 device objects there. The third device object is over here in the Teams Admin Center.
By the way, I just got distracted. My phone just did a notification. Something French toast sticks. I'm like, please hold while I check this important message.
That sounds delicious. Is this a phone or a panel or a display?
This is a phone.
Okay, we're not showing your phone in Teams Admin Center yet, but that is to be expected with replication time.
Give it a minute.
We'll wait for that one. And while we wait on Teams Admin Center, let's go look and see why you're being marked as non-compliant. The way we check that is in the Intune Endpoint Management portal under Troubleshooting and Support. And then we select your user.
What's that little Intune license exclamation mark mean? Does that mean I don't have an Intune license?
Good. Yes, I believe that is what that means. So where is that portal? Let's check your licenses. Does an E3 have an Intune license?
Well, we can find out. Click on it, then scroll down and click apps. I don't see Intune.
No, it does not.
Scroll up.
So conditional access is telling the device when you sign in, it's saying this device must be marked as compliant. And this setting in conditional access where we see that, I'll show you. Let me just go back to, let me find the one. We're almost back there. Which one was marked here? Oh. So this setting right here, required device to be marked as compliant. That one.
Yep.
That requires the device to enroll in Intune, and you can't enroll in Intune unless you have an Intune license. So that's where we're getting hung up, is that conditional access requires this, but you can't do it because you don't have the right license. So that's where the non-compliance is happening. So per our policy, we have 24 hours to fix this and get compliant. Otherwise, your device will sign itself out.
Where was it? There was a thing where we set that, wasn't there? Like way back in here about, we had the discussion about flipping it of marking it non-compliant or compliant.
Yes.
Where was that?
That is under compliance policies and compliance policy settings. but this setting only refers to compliance policies.
Oh, the policy, not a
Doesn't-
license or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with conditional access requiring enrollment, because this is compliance policy, not enrollment. Enrollment is a separate piece of the puzzle.
All right, we do have a compliance policy assigned, so okay.
Right.
So the answer here is to find an Intune license to slap onto my guy.
Now we have our Intune license.
Now we have our Intune. So now if I reboot the phone, I don't know where we were, but
Rebooting the phone doesn't always make the phone enroll. It doesn't force enrollment from a reboot. You would actually have to sign out and sign back in.
So will it clear that error message? Will it at least be marked as compliant?
It should. I think that you should try to reboot it first. And then if that doesn't fix this problem, then we'll try to sign out and sign back in.
All right. Let's see what happens in 2 minutes.
Your phone was just factory defaulted. So the only policies that have been pushed down and are cached in there are policies from this tenant. So it should be fine. You should not need a factory default. Is your firmware up to date? Oh, you need a firmware update. What else do you need in there? Just firmware?
Firmware right now.
Click on the update firmware and see how many versions behind you are. See available updates. Drop down manual update and we can see. Yeah, you're not too far behind.
.011s. It's not bad. So my phone has now rebooted and I'm signed in.
Okay.
Now what? Where were we again to see if where was that setting to?
The troubleshooting and support. Let's see if you have something showing up there. And select your user.
Well, it doesn't like the license details. It's replication, probably.
Yeah, go all the way to the left tab to Azure AD and refresh this. Yeah, this has to be replication.
So hey everyone, it's a couple of days later actually, and I've come back to see if that Intune compliance issue has gone away. So I'm just going to check myself really quickly and see if we can lock this up. And so let me find me, select, and we still have this problem. Now, in fairness, I did check this out before I recorded this, and it ends up that I have an Office 365 E5 demo trial assigned to me. Now, E5 should have Intune, but if I scroll down here, notice the E5 demo trial, Intune not included. So that is why I still have this problem. So I need to go dig through this tenant, find an Intune license that isn't a trial, and that should clean up this issue. So the cool way I found this, I was having trouble figuring out how to find out is Intune assigned. So I went down to your products, and then I just clicked on one. So let's just pick the E3 demo trial just to change it up. And then in here, we see this view apps and services included with this subscription. This seems to be a better list than what you see in the properties of the user for the license. Because as you saw in the video, we couldn't find Intune under E3, so we just assumed it was under E5. And you can see here, this E3 demo trial does not include it, but licensing, right? Thanks for watching the videos. And thanks, Traci, for being so awesome. If you have any questions, leave some comments below, and I'll see if I can get Traci to answer them for me. Thanks, everyone.